Hello friends and welcome to this Neocolor II themed video where we will be creating this beautiful summer landscape together. As always, I will show you step by step how I like to use my Neocolor II water-soluble crayons to create landscapes. This is something I do lots here on my channel, and I think it was a long overdue kind of new video with a summer landscape since we are living summer months here where I live. I will start by making this very quick outline sketch, and then we'll start adding the first layer of colors, and then of course also building the different contrast and details and layers, so you can easily follow along if that's something you like to do. And I have all the colors and materials listed in the description, so you can check those out if you wish to know the exact colors I use. But as I always say, you can definitely just, use whichever colors speak to you today or which ones you happen to have at hand. So don't let your art supply collection or selection of different crayons limit you. The paper I'm using here is Fabriano's watercolor paper. It is cold pressed paper, which I think works really well with Neocolor II's. It does have a bit of texture to it, so once we start activating the pigment, you can see that some texture will be visible. But for me, that's okay. I actually prefer it that way, especially with landscapes. I think it just creates the interest and a different, it's just interest and depth to your art. So feel free to use whichever paper you have at hand, but I wanted to share what paper I'm using today, just in case you want to test out some alternatives to your usual papers. As you can see, I am adding the first layer of color so that I will just create this very colorful canvas. And once we start activating color, you will see that it's actually the first layer is often pretty messy when it comes to my landscapes. That's because I want to kind of color block different areas, and especially a landscape like this, which will have loads of different greens and browns, and that's pretty much the only thing there is to it. I want to make sure that we have that variety already from the start. So that's what you can see me doing here. I'm just adding different crayons, different colors, trying to build the interest, the first layer, and then once that is done, we will start adding the details. I will already at this point also add some contrast, so I'll add the bit of darker tones and darker colors to those areas where we'll have a bit of shade. But I have to say that with this one, those shades and darker parts actually come to life only kind of the later steps, because yes, everything pretty much mixes together soon. But anyway, I think it's kind of helpful for at least for me to somehow at least color block different areas and give myself the idea where I want shadows to be and where the light is actually hitting. There will be some intense and a bit of, weird shades and light parts in this one. That's because I wanted to create a landscape with a morning sun, which often is very bright and it comes kind of a bit lower, and that means that we'll have some intense shadows. But also those parts where the sun is actually hitting to the leaves and trees, those will be very bright, and that's why we are using this beautiful lemon yellow color also to add those highlights amongst all the different greens. Whenever creating landscapes like this, I just find it so relaxing that you can just add whichever colors, whichever greens speak to you, and it doesn't have to be picture perfect, it doesn't have to be realistic as such. It's just, I enjoy using different colors, seeing the colors play along together and see how they then mix on paper once we start adding water. So that's just something I find very relaxing and fun with these crayons. So now it's then time to take that water brush or watercolor brush and loads of water and start mixing everything together here in the paper. This is exactly how I like to use these crayons that I add them on paper, then I start mixing colors together and kind of paint the first layer of color. And you can see that I'm moving the colors around, pigment around, so that I can, as I activate the colors, I'm painting at the same time. So that way we can get these beautiful, say very lively, and yeah, just lots of variation on a paper. The secret to this, I would say, is first of all paper. You have to have good enough quality paper so that it can handle lots of water. But then you also have to be able to control the amount of water that you're using, because you can see that I'm kind of controlling that so that it's not everything is spreading around. We don't have just one big pool of color, but I'm actually being able to move the pigment around, and that I don't use too much water here. That's why I also like to use these synthetic watercolor brushes, because they don't bring too much water, and I just don't have a pool of colorful green water here on the page. You can also see that I'm leaving some of the crayon marks visible, and that's the beauty of Neocolor II, is that if I wanted to make a very, say, even and smooth background, that's when I would use gouache or watercolor. But with these crayons, I can actually leave parts of the crayon marks and some of the crayons even kind of some pigment inactivated. And that means that when it's inactivated, you can actually see the lines and the marks. And I think that just brings loads of interest to the picture itself. I'm painting really loose here. As you can see, I am just enjoying the process, going with the flow and seeing the colors blend together, and also seeing the landscape come together little by little. Unfortunately, I haven't had that much time and energy to create art lately, but I'm now very much inspired by beautiful nature we have around us during the summer months. It's been rather cold summer here where I live, and that means that I've been actually able to spend some time outdoors. It's not too warm there, but the nature is looking so pretty when it's been raining, and you can see the different shades of green. And yes, I think it's just really, really pretty out there, and it's been inspiring. That's why I also wanted to create this summer landscape, so hopefully I can bring a bit of that beautiful, beautiful summer feeling also to you. I really like to experiment with different textures whenever using these crayons. You can see here also that I'm adding crayons on a wet surface. I'm scratching them bits. I'm using different kinds of techniques, really just playing with the crayons and playing with different textures and seeing what happens. And that's what I also always encourage everyone to do in all these videos. I want to emphasize that I have only techniques that work for me and techniques that I enjoy, and what I hope is that my videos inspire you to experiment with your art supplies and find new fun ways to use them and just enjoy your art. I don't think, and this is my personal opinion, but I don't think there is one right way to use, for example, these water-soluble crayons. You can experiment, you can find whatever is your best way, and I hope that these videos inspire you to do exactly that. I remember when I first got my Neocolor II crayons, and I loved them immediately. I really saw all the potential and fun ways that I could use them. But it wasn't until I started to really experiment and to find my own way to use them for my art style that I really fell in love with this medium. So I think that's the beauty also of the internet and these different art channels, that you can see so many different techniques and ways to use your art supplies. You can see what other people are doing with them and use that to your inspiration and find your own way. And I think that's where the magic starts to happen. I want to take this opportunity to say hello and thank you to all my new subscribers, and also for all of you who've been following my channel for a longer period of time already. I know it's been a bit of strange first months of the year or first half of the year here on my channel. I haven't been able to stick to my regular uploading routine due to all kinds of things happening in life. But thank you so much for all your lovely comments, and continue to watch my videos and support the channel. It really means a lot. That's also why I wanted to share this bit more relaxing and just a little creative moment with the crayons with you today, because I feel that this is exactly the kind of art that at least I need in my life at the moment. I often start to overanalyze my own art. Not sure if that happens to everyone else, but I start thinking what kind of new methods I should try and what kind of supplies I should use today, etc. But then very often, if you don't have that much time for your arts and you just want to have a nice creative moment, it's actually the best thing, I think, is to take your favorite art supplies from their drawer and just enjoy the creative process as much as possible. And that's what I did this one morning when I was sketching and painting and drawing this landscape. So you can see here how I'm adding different layers, and as I always say, my favorite way of using any kind of water-soluble mediums is that the first layers I will activate the pigment and use the water, and then I will start also adding the, for example in this case, the crayons down a paper without activating the pigment. And that's the beauty of these kinds of mediums, that you can use them in so many different ways and see what works for your art piece at that moment of time. So you can see that I'm adding some details, I'm adding some kind of background details as well, and some interest to the picture without activating the pigment. And that way I'm just, adding the layer of fine lines and drawings, and that's giving also lots of interest to this piece. I think the beauty of Neocolor II is also that you can, as I said earlier, there are so many different ways to use these, and you can see wonderful ways that people are using these here, for example, in different art channels here on YouTube. And very often we see beautiful illustrations and those colorful small little pieces and illustrations. What I like to do here on my channel, I do sometimes those little illustrations as well, but I also want to encourage people to use these crayons for these kinds of vibrant landscapes. So even though sometimes it feels that some art supplies are used very often in a similar way, but sometimes it's also good to challenge your own thinking. So if you have your crayons and if you have not used them for landscapes like these, I encourage you to do so. You will find a whole new world, I promise. In this landscape I was also using many of my favorite crayons. For example, that Sahara yellow, beautiful color for those sunlit highlights. And I'm also, of course, adding some white crayons for details at a later stage. When it came to the leaves, and of course there's lots of greenery, lots of green details in this little landscape, I wanted to use my palette. I have here the Caran palette, but you could use any kind of scratchy palette or surface for your palette. And I was mixing different greens together and also activating some of the old crayons that you see there being in the palette. I don't clean it that often because you can always reactivate the pigment. So anyway, I'm using this palette to mix the crayons and greens together And then I'm using this little watercolor brush to just add leaves and different details and interest. So this is also a fun way to easily add some details without, drawing each individual leaf, which would be an impossible task to do anyway. When I'm mixing these crayons together here in the palette, you can see that I'm not kind of creating one even mix, and that means that I can have loads of different variety naturally. So I'm just dipping my brush to whichever part of this weird greenish mix that I have, and that way I can have lots of different kind of variations of different greens when I'm adding the leaves, if that makes sense. So whenever you are mixing the colors together on a palette, remember you don't have to create an even mix, because that even it brings more interest when you have different areas with different shades of green. Difficult to explain, but you can see what I'm doing here. It's not an even mix, it's just a bunch of different shades of greens, and then I'm dipping my brush wherever it happens to land. And also by changing and altering the amount of water, I can alter the way the pigment shows on the paper. And here I'm doing some final activations to some of the shadows so that we can have a bit more intensity and depth. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please leave me a comment below and also give this video a like so that I know that this is something you'd like to see more going forward. And as said, really hoping that you have a wonderful summer or winter wherever you live at the moment, filled with art and wonderful little moments of inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon in my next video. I have actually my summer Inktense palette for you coming very soon, so latest in that video I will see you again. Thank you and have a lovely week ahead.